Welcome to Behaviorally Speaking Leadership for Changemakers. I'm your host, Dr. Esther Bubb. Today, I'm joined by Timothy Bubb, Managing Director of SafeEd Inc. in Grenada. We explore how engineering principles shape leadership decision-making, how helping people understand the why transforms accountability and performance, and how cultural context, responsibility, and early education influence social change. Let's dive in. So, Timothy, it's a pleasure having you on the podcast today. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing fine, actually. And thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. I'm really looking forward to your perspectives on leadership and everything we're going to chat about. And, for all of the ones that I've done so far, but I always learn from them. So I'm absolutely looking forward to what I'm going to learn from my big brother today.
I think we will be learning from each other.
Wonderful. I love that. So, Timothy, you've had such an extensive career in civil engineering. It spans several Caribbean countries, including, of course, our homeland, Grenada. How has the discipline, of engineering and your diverse experiences shaped your personal philosophy on leadership?
Okay. So, there are a number of definitions of engineering, but the one I love is the art of using the great resources of nature for the use and convenience of humankind.
I love that.
The civil in civil engineering refers to civilians. So we basically work for people. We work for the society. Civil engineering is I would say it involves in design. Design is basically a process of optimization. So there are a number of competing factors that has to be satisfied. And because of that, in civil engineering, we oftentimes refer to solutions as being optimal, meaning that when you consider all the factors, this is the best one. So it won't be the best for one particular thing or for another particular thing, but it gives the best balance. So that's why we use the word optimal solution. So there are a number of solutions, and we try to find the optimal. To do that, there's discipline, which is required, and there's standard procedures, which is required. So in doing design, we go through a process. Take, for example, fundamentally in design, we say that there are 4 fundamental aims that has to be met.
Okay.
The design should satisfy, it should be safe.
Okay.
It should be functional, which means it should fulfill its intended purpose during its design life.
Yeah.
It should be economical. And when we talk about economical, we're not looking just at initial cost, but we're also looking at maintenance costs, which sometimes get left out.
Yeah.
And fourthly, it should add delight to the environment. It should be pleasing to look at. So we go through this we rank those in the order in which I see them, and we go through that process by looking at each of these. So in my professional life, that sort of discipline has helped me to be more structured, and I would say more organized. And your question is about how it shaped my personal philosophy and leadership.
Right.
And what I would say is by adapting this approach, it gives you the optimal solution, and it also directs people or your subordinates or those who you lead to follow that same procedure and that process. The interesting thing about that procedure and that process is that it can be applied to your life as well. So I once had a young engineer who worked with me, and he told me he was then living with his girlfriend.
Okay.
And he told me that his girlfriend started commenting on how he was more organized at home, getting his work done, right?
Okay.
And that's a discipline. You know, the same discipline you apply to engineering, you apply
Yeah.
to your life. So, leadership, my philosophy for leadership, I would say it's influenced it in that way, in terms of being structured,
Mm.
to look at. Many times we have myopic or tunnel vision. We just look at one thing. But in
Yeah.
engineering, we have to look at number of factors and find what is the best, considering all of them.
Yeah. I love that. So you're talking the whole time, I was like, ooh, this really aligns with, behavior analysis, education, all that stuff, because you mentioned we would call them contingencies, right? If then. So if these factors are there, you're more likely, to be better at civil engine, or you're more likely to see the behaviors you want to see. So you mentioned safety, right? We have to promote that at all times. You mentioned the functionality, and we often promote functional behaviors. Like, so students are using, for example, a toy the way it's intended to be used. That is economical. It's all about cost savings, right? So if, for example, a child no longer requires services, then, we show that they've met their goals, and, let's reduce the services. And then when you said pleasing, it reminded me of social validity, right? That the thing we're doing is meaningful to the people, we're providing the intervention to. So there's a lot of alignment there. And so I think you're 100% correct. I like how you said that influences your philosophy on leadership, because you're kind of saying, like, in my behavioral world, I need to have all of these contingencies. And if I have those things, myself as, a civil engineer or an intern or whoever it is, like you gave the example of the story of your student engineer, right? And the comment. So it spilled over into his personal life. And so in my recording yesterday, I was talking to someone, but we were talking about how us as mothers, right, that then carries over into the work we do as educators. So I like that you shared how all of those aspects of engineering really sort of shaped and continues to shape your view on leadership.
Yes.
Yeah. So in your work with SafeEd, right? So that's your civil engineering company, SafeEd Inc. You often provide technical oversight. And I hear some of them because we talk behind the scenes, bro, your job and the things you do. And it's really, intriguing. But what is the most important soft skill that you would say, Timothy, is required, right, when managing high stakes infrastructure projects? You talked about all the things like pleasing and whatnot, the safety, but like, what would you say is the most important soft skill someone needs to have when, dealing with, like, you deal with projects that are really high stakes, right? Safety is a big factor. What would you say is the most important soft skill?
Okay, that's a very interesting question, because in my profession, we don't talk about soft skills. Okay. If we have to build a bridge, we have to build the bridge by all means, know. we might need to rough you up a bit to get it done, Yeah. So I would say, if I have to say a soft skill, I would say it would be helping those involved to understand the importance of what they're doing, because it's a team effort. Yeah. And it doesn't matter the simplest person; everybody contributes to the deliverable and to accomplishing the task. I think people work best or better if they have a better appreciation of the importance of what they're doing and why they're doing it. So what I do when I'm managing and supervising, the soft skill if you want to call it that I would use is, I try to explain to the workers and those who are doing, or the technicians, whoever, why they're doing what they're doing and the importance of what they're doing. And I think once everybody understands that they're a very important part of the whole process, that it helps them to perform better, because they see themselves as being an important part of the whole process. That's a soft skill I could identify. Trying to explain and for them to understand the importance of what they're doing and why they're doing it.
Yeah, I think that's very critical, Timothy, because I'm really big on the why, right? So I remember, like, and you may have seen it in movies too, like a child may ask a parent, why do I have to do this? And the response would be, because I said so, but I didn't raise Michaela that way. Like, I would explain the why, but honey, you're still going to have to wash the dishes, right? So really helping them understand the why and the reasoning, like I'm really big on that. So whether it's my child or whether it's a staff member or a student, it doesn't really matter. Because what I find, Timothy, is when they understand the why and the purpose, right, they're buying into or taking ownership is the other way I try to phrase it, instead of saying being bought in, but taking ownership in what you're doing because you're fully vested. You really understand why you're doing this to begin with, and it makes sense. So I think that's an important one that you identified. And what I always say to like my mentees or students is always ask why. But on the other hand, always be prepared with your answer for the why, because someone could ask you why, right? And so sometimes I'll ask them why when I'm in check-ins and whatnot, and they fumble to answer the question. But I think it's really important that we know the why, we share the why, and that we're always asking why, so we're understanding what it is we're doing, but making sure the person who's giving you the task to know why they're asking you to do it, right? So I love that you picked that one.
Yeah, and then in our profession, it's particularly important because to get things right, there are usually one or a very small number of ways to get it right, and then there are loads and loads of ways to do it, but you will not necessarily get it right. Yeah. And sometimes to get it right, it might be a bit painstaking. And it might require you to pay particular attention and to be very attentive. And so the level of effort you require to put out to get it right is much more than the level of effort you require to put out to just do it and not necessarily do it right. So helping one to understand the importance of why you're doing it and why you have to do it this particular way also helps. Because if you find it's a bit long-winded and it's a bit painful and it's a bit time-consuming, you'll appreciate that doing it another way would not necessarily give you the best results. Yeah. And there's also, well, in our profession, there's always the issue of time because you have to deliver within a certain time. Yeah. And what tends to happen is a lot of time people say, I don't have time, or we don't have time, so we just need to get it done. And then what often happens is you say you don't have time, you do it, it's not done properly, and you have to do it over. Yeah. So what I say is, if you don't have time, what that means is you have to take time to do it right.
Right.
Because the time that you say you don't have, when you do it wrong, you still have to go and do it over. So then you have time to do it and do it over.
Exactly.
So take your time and do it right.
Exactly.
And then you won't have to do it over again.
Yeah, I like that. It makes me think of our saying back home, more haste, less speed, right?
Yeah, right. Correct.
Yeah,
correct.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, how do you maintain professional integrity, Timothy, and compassionate accountability at the same time, right? Like really holding people accountable, but being compassionate at the same time. I'm really big on compassion in my field. So how do you maintain both your professional integrity and compassionate accountability when navigating complex projects, right, that are involving multiple stakeholders?
All right. So again, that's another interesting question because in our field, we don't think much about compassion. I mean, what drives us is we need to get this done. Take, for example, in my office, my workers have, my staff has, you have our working hours. And that's the way I've always worked. We have working hours. Mm-hmm. But, so you have your time you clock in and the time you're supposed to clock out. Now, if there is a proposal which has to go out and the deadline is tomorrow at, say, 3:00 and we're way behind, and I don't need to say to them, well, you need to go beyond 4:30 to get it to a level that we can get it out by that time. And that's not overtime. That's just, we need to get the work done. Right? Yeah. So the compassion, I will answer that, but it's not something we think about a lot. We're driven by what needs to be done and the time within which to deliver it. Our career is time driven. If you have projects, you have to deal with them within a certain time. The compassion part, I think, would come in if we can see maybe the person is a bit stressed. And it's the push is a bit much for them. Yeah. And then we can then probably try to see how we can help out or alleviate. But in our profession, it's delivery and it's delivering and it's producing deliverables. So I think that's, as I say, a very interesting question. It's not one that we think about a lot, but probably we should a bit more. And that's the best way I can relate to that, by looking at those who have to do the work and seeing if it's pushing them a bit, and where we can help out. One thing I do with my staff though is anytime anybody asks for some time off, I do ask the reason. I always say yes. Okay. Because I don't know what the issues are. And then because of how we work, I have no problem with it. And I tell them that. So we work based on deadlines. It doesn't matter that you have your 8 or 8.5 hours of your work. Yeah. If to finish it, we need to work 10 hours, but we have to work the 10 hours. Yeah. And so with that, maybe I could consider that a bit of compassion as well. But whenever staff need some time, they need some holidays, I don't ask the reason. Just last week, one came to me and says, I would like to have a week in May. And then she's like, okay, I know we have this. I say, no, you can have your week in May. The way I see it is, if you have to do it, then we have to find ways of adjusting to accommodate you.
Absolutely.
And that's the way I see it. And then I know, because my staff work well, if they come to ask for some time and it's a critical period, it has to be a good reason. Yeah. So maybe that's the compassion. I had one person who worked for me before who said to me, she used to boast to people about her boss. So maybe I was actually surprised. But that's probably where the compassion comes in, seeing the human side of them. And sometimes they might need some time. And also, if you find they're a bit stressed with what they're doing, being able to intervene and help out.
Yeah, no, that definitely is a perfect example. And I think it extends into the concept of psychological safety, right? So they at work, they feel safe, they feel trust, they feel like, all right, I can work and I do my work and I work extra if I need to. But at the same time, if I need to be off, I can just let my boss know, and, my time off will be approved. So I think it's you're doing both, that compassionate accountability, but also they feel, that psychological safety for them. And also they can strike that work-life balance, which we know is so important, right? So I think you're doing that in your own way, in your field, right? So that's absolutely phenomenal. So I know, bro, that you are passionate about mentoring. You do take on interns, for example, and I've known, I've met some of them, and, they move on from interns to then, moving into the field and, landing jobs and, consults and things like that. So what would you say, Timothy, are the first steps in identifying leadership potential in a young person who may not necessarily see it in themselves? Like I've worked with people like that where I've seen it and encouraged them. What are some of the things you see that tells you there is this leadership potential there, or there is whatever potential, but they're just not seeing it, or they don't believe in themselves, they don't have the confidence?
That's a nice question. I would say, for me, if I have to simplify it, I would say attention to detail. The attention paid to detail. I'll give you a simple example. I had a member staff once, and she actually came because we had a lot of admin work coming up because with projects. So we had lots of proposals to do, preparing documents, printing documents, binding documents, and we needed some extra support in that area in the office. So she came in to help out with that. She used to come in, maybe I think she started 1 day a week, then 2, then 3. And then as the work picked up, then she became regular. And that's what she was here for. I had a job where I had to put someone on site. It's technical work. And the person who I had to put, the job he was on didn't complete when they didn't complete as intended. So he couldn't take up their engagement with me. And at that short notice, I had nobody to put. So I said to her, she did building technology at CC, but she didn't do much in that area. So I said to her, I want to put you on the site. I think you will do well there. Remember, she came into the admin work. And she was petrified. She was like, no, I can't. I says, okay, I will offer you a bit more. No, I don't want anything more. I can't. I'm scared. I says, watch, I know you can do it. And the reason how I know she can do it is because of the attention she paid to detail. So I'll tell you, she used to clean the office in addition to what she had to do. And little things, she reorganize, she dust, the areas where we never really bothered because we just had to work, and that actually stood out to me. And I said, if she's that good at doing this little thing, then when we're on site, you need to be able to pay attention to detail. You need to be meticulous. You have to study the drawings. You have to study the documents. You have to see what is required. Because basically, what you're doing is making sure that what was designed is done.
Yeah.
And so I sent her to site. And of course, I gave her support initially. And she did excellent. Actually, she's trying to be one of the best clerk of works I've ever had. And she now works with a major utility firm here in a supervisory capacity. Wonderful. But that went on from where she started, right? Yeah. She didn't know that she would be there. Yeah. Another time there was a course on offer at the St. George's University. And she said to me she thinks she would like to do this course because she sees it can enhance her skill set. And I said to her, okay, we pay for it. So attention to detail, I think, is very important. Your personality comes out in that. And what I said to people is, I said, look, 10 people can go and do a degree, and you can have somebody who aced it and probably get first class honors, and somebody who probably didn't ace it and didn't get as well. But when they go out to work, everybody's own personality and character comes out in what they do. And you can get one person excelling, and another person, if they did well academically, not doing very well then. And I think that attention you pay to detail, that separates you from the others. Yeah. So there are a number of things you would look at, but that one, for me, is important. Paying attention to detail. And paying attention to detail is not just little things. It could be, are you early for work? Mm-hmm. Are you on time? Yeah. And how well do you do what you do? And that sort of thing. Because that feeds back into your there's the same we tell on ourselves. So whoever you are comes out in what you do. Mm-hmm. And I think with that, well, for me, that had worked. That has worked, as I gave you the example of this one young lady. Yeah. So attention to detail for me, that's it.
Yeah. And I think that's so important. That's a really good example and a good story, Timothy, in terms of developing youth leaders, whether youth or not, but like seeing in people potential that they can't see yet in themselves, and like really helping them see it. Because look at how that story you shared. Now, you know, she's in a supervisory position. So imagine if you hadn't said anything, or you hadn't supported and kind of nudged her on. Even for me, that this is the reason, Timothy, why, I'm in the field I am, because as you know, it's more expanded now, but when I left, special education and, mental health and disability was just not, what it is there now. But anyways, I was working as a therapeutic staff support with a student, a teenager, and he has bipolar disorder. And one of my colleagues, his name is Corey, he was like, have you ever heard of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis? I'm like, no. He was like, you're so good with him. I really think you should look into that. He was like, yes, St. Joe's has a program, and, St. Joe's is in our neighborhood. So I was like, oh, okay. I looked into it and then really loved it. And, honestly, if he hadn't said that to me, Timothy, I don't know if I'd be doing what I'm doing now, because he saw something in me that I was just doing my job, right? Not necessarily thinking about, oh, I'm good at this, but I didn't know anything about ABA then. And then even I have staff that are now in different positions. Like I saw potential in them, and I would say, I really think you should consider this, and they'd be like, no. And then, but I'll keep saying it ever so often. And then they would eventually move into it and then come back and thank me. So I think it's really critical. Like we have that responsibility, I believe, to really help people develop and move from where they are to where they could be, help them see, things that they may not necessarily see. I mean, we can bring the horse to the water, we can make the horse drink, but at least, we're doing our due diligence, right? To let them see it and support them. Yeah.
Right. I agree.
So I love that story you shared. So staying on the topic of like developing youth leaders. So in our culture, right, or Caribbean cultures often value, age and experience, and things like that. How do we create space, Timothy? And I think this is so critical, right, for youth leaders or young leaders to have a seat at the table, but not just a seat at the table, but to engage in national conversations, right? How do we create space for them? How do we get them there?
All right. So in my profession, I don't know that we necessarily have to make any explicit attempt to create space. Yeah. Because as you move on in the profession, you have to get younger heads to come in. By that I mean, so in engineering design, we have design, which is maths and calcs and solving problems and solving equations and stuff like that. When you're a young engineer, that's very exciting stuff to do. As you get older in the profession, you move up to, supervising work, and then eventually probably just managing the office. So the nature of the profession is you need to have young. Right now, I'm looking for some younger persons to come in.
Okay. Maybe you'll get some after they hear this podcast, right?
Yeah, because as you get on in age and also in the profession, that sort of number crunching work, it's no longer interesting to you, and you need sharp people, as young people, and who are very sharp as well. Yeah, so I guess what I'm trying to say is in our profession, the younger people normally just naturally has to come in to fill those spaces. And then what they do, they then get mentoring, because the field is you have the experience part, which is very highly valued in my profession, because in solving problems there can be myriad solutions, and the more experience you have, then it means you'll have a bigger trove of experience to which to draw on to solve problems. And you can optimize the solution very quickly, because okay, we did this, we did that with these sorts of problems. So I can quickly narrow it down rather than having to go through the whole long-winded process. So that's where the experience comes in guiding and mentoring the younger persons. But naturally for us, in our industry, we need to have young people coming in. So we don't really have to make a special effort for that. It's just part of the profession.
What about yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, did I cut you off?
Yeah, I was saying that's the nature of the profession. You need to have some young minds to deal with the number crunching and the hard stuff.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. What about, do you guys have like professional civil engineering or engineering associations and boards like that? No, do you see them joining the associations and taking like leadership roles, having a seat at the table to have conversations in that respect?
Well, yeah, I actually encourage, and it's something I've done. I've actually encouraged young engineers to join.
Okay.
And that also is helpful as well, because then you then interface with experienced engineers. As part of the profession, it's also a very important part of the profession to stay current. Because the profession is one that, based on the latest trend and the latest solutions that are there, you have different tools and more modern tools and more modern equipment. So by being part of these professional association, it helps you to stay current. So it's something I actively do as well.
Okay, wonderful.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's shift a bit to talking about engineering, social change in Grenada. As leaders, as business owners, as professionals, we have a responsibility to society or communities or countries, things like that. So it's essential for us to be involved in, social issues like, gender-based violence. It's a hot topic today, especially in Grenada. What are your thoughts on this proposition?
Yeah, well, it's something that's come up in our profession. We've had, I would say, financing institutions who finance projects who add that on, and we've had to have sessions on that. So, yes, it's something that's out there, and it's in the public, and we know it. I just think that the approach might not necessarily be as effective as one might want it to be, because I think you're targeting adult males who have already their psyche and their outlook on life has been formed over a number of years. So I'm not saying we shouldn't intervene at that level. Yes, we should intervene at that level. But I think the more effective intervention would be early on in childhood, when they form their opinions of women, their opinions on gender, and their opinions on people's on the roles that the different gender play. I think that would be more effective than just intervening at the adult male level. And I'm not saying we shouldn't. Is like dealing with an alcoholic. If you can intervene before and get that person not to become alcoholic, then of course it's more effective and better than intervening after they become an alcoholic.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean you shouldn't try to intervene after. I think in the case of gender-based violence, a lot has to do with people's thinking and outlook, and that's why I think it's important to intervene before that. It has been found from research that, take for example, the abusers tend to have been abused.
True.
Not all, but you have quite a number of them who were abused, and then in adulthood now they continue that abuse, abuse others. So it means that if some intervention was made in their formative years, it might have helped better at preventing them from becoming an abuser in the first place. So to sum that up, I think, yes, intervening so what we've done in our profession, as I said, we've had seminars, and we've had presentations, and even in those seminars and presentations you hear, it's always interesting. They're always interesting, and they always create a lot of back and forth and heightened sense of everybody's, very, very interesting. We've had ones at the bank, CDB. They had one that I had to do some presentations, some technical stuff, and that was also added on that I need to get something on that. And then it's very interesting hearing people's views, and particularly the older guys, I remember the facilitator, trying to explain, sometimes, woman is stressed, and, sometimes, for some reason, today she's not up with it. And one older guy says, if it's my wife, you can't have that, that's just not part of the package,
Yeah.
So it's quite interesting. I think we can do the best we can at this level, but I think intervention needs to be primarily at the home and the school.
Yeah.
I think young men need to be taught, and boys need to be taught their roles, the roles of women. They need to be taught that a woman is not property. They need to be taught that you can do a lot and invest in a relationship and in family, and at some point that the world is different now.
Yes.
People are more independent. And at some point, one party or the other might not be interested anymore. For whatever reason, it might not necessarily because something's wrong with you. It could be just that they're not interested anymore, and just that the world now is different. People are not property, so you have to also understand that yes, it's painful and it's hurtful. That you can make major investment in time and effort and all of that, and then at the end of the day, you could see it not realize what you set out to accomplish. It's just one of the realities of life. Yeah. And I think some people have difficulties understanding that and coping with that. And I think the way you reach those people is by dealing with it in those formative years and letting them understand these things do happen and they're a part of life.
Yeah.
The same thing happening in parents and children.
Yes.
So it's just that in the case of relationships, people tend to think that, I own this, so, I'm entitled to this because I've done all this,
Yeah.
And I think getting people to understand that that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And it's never acceptable to lash out. It's never acceptable to be violent in this sort of instances. But I think helping them to understand that you're not entitled because of what you've done, that helps a lot. And I think it also goes with, we focus on the men, and yes, we should, because in most cases they're the perpetrators of the violence. Right. But I think we also need to educate women as well, because most time when you hear they talk about gender-based violence, it's always focused on the men.
Yes.
But men are reacting to something. Now, it's not that what the men is doing is right, and you can't justify it, just wrong. But you still need to understand it, and I think also you should focus on the woman as well, and not to blame the woman. I have to be very clear here. Blame the woman, because women can't be blamed. Right. But to help them to understand that, if this is the thinking of men, that you should act in such ways that could help avoid that. And I have to be very careful when I speak about this, because you have people try to blame women and try to say the woman brought that, and I say I don't think the women bring anything like that. I think the men and the way they think. But the woman has to also understand that if men think this way, then maybe I need to act this other way. If you know what I mean.
Yes.
I would not take my phone and rest it outside on the roadside. For the simple reason that I know there are people who would steal it. Now, I would not steal it. I would not take it. It doesn't belong to me, but I know there are people who do it.
Yeah.
So to say that nobody should touch it because it doesn't belong to them means that you're not being realistic. So the fact that I know that, then I would take steps to avoid that. And that's the point I make with the women. Not to say that I'm blaming them. I'm just saying if you know that men has this way of thinking and this way of operating, then you should also use that to inform the decisions you make to help avoid those sort of situations and those sort of scenarios.
Yeah, it makes sense. And what I'm hearing you say at the core of what you just said is education on both parts, right? And education starting in the early formative years. And, it makes me think of, a lot of what you said really aligns with, what I do, behavior analysis, things like that. But, early intervention, we always say the earlier you can start intervening on whatever this skill deficit is, right? The more opportunity this child has to then contact contingencies that would allow them to acquire that skill. So it's the same concept. In the early years, the brain, it's forming, it's malleable, it's all of those things. So that's the important time to start. But then, as you said, continue the conversation, right, throughout the lifetime and help people have those conversations, help educate them, help them become knowledgeable. Because as you said, are we addressing the root of the problem? And so we always try to identify what is the function when we're talking about behaviors, because those are behaviors, right? So it aligns with what I do. But why is the behavior happening? We have to understand why the behavior is happening, because if we're not addressing the why, whatever we're doing, it's not going to do anything. They'll continue doing it. And then as you're saying, so we always say, all right, if we're going to remove this, access to this particular behavior, then we have to teach them what to do instead. And that's exactly what you're saying, right? So instead of doing this, this is problematic, but instead of doing this, here's what you can do instead. And I always say, oftentimes the part we miss, Timothy, in my field is teaching, right? So when they engage in the behavior, we'll quickly run and be like, why are you doing this? But when have we ever taught them what to do instead? And that's the most critical part. And that's what you're saying. We have to take the time to teach them what to do instead. So now they have that. They can access whatever it is they're trying to access in an appropriate, functional way, So that's really what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, I mean, I can give an example. So there's this guy I spoke to, and he actually came to do some work for me, and we were just having a chat generally. And he said to me, look, I'm married and I'm no longer with my wife, we're divorced. And he says, when I was getting married, my mom said to me, She says, watch, let's suppose his name is Jonathan. Jonathan, you see Mary? You love Mary, right? Yes, I love Mary. Okay, you're getting married to Mary? Yes, I support you getting married to Mary. But Jonathan, when Mary is ready to go, just let her go, okay? Now, what his mom was trying to communicate with him, look, in spite of how you feel now and how everything goes, there could be a point where, your wife no longer wants to continue with this thing. And that's the part I'm talking about, where we don't normally communicate this. I don't think this is communicated with the guy. So when these things happen, a lot of times, they think I've invested so much and, I don't have a return, or I own this person. You don't own anybody. And you need to understand you can do that, and at some point, this person's an individual. Even though you're married, they're still an individual. And you could have done everything right. I mean, people actually say that. There's nothing wrong with it. I just I'm no longer interested. And it's hard and it's tough, but I think you need to be the guys need to be told that. They need to understand that. And they need to understand that if a woman is no longer interested, it doesn't mean that she's bad or something's wrong with her. Right. It's just no longer interested. Because you have to also see from the other side as well. I mean, who wants to spend the rest of their life around someone who you don't feel, not that you hate the person, but you just don't feel fulfilled anymore. You don't feel, the best. And these conversations, they're not usually had. I'm saying these things and they're not usually had. A lot of times, these are the realities behind a lot of the violence. I'm not saying it's for everything. Right. But I think if you get people to, I think guys think you need to be rearranged as well. Yeah. And women also need to understand that, I mean, this is the thinking of some guys, and I need to be aware that they might be, so sometimes I might see behaviors And I might think it's a nice behavior, but if it's a possessive behavior and it's the behavior that's very demanding, I can have problems later on because this guy might be looking at as he owns me, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think you should be realistic and speak to the issues.
Yes.
Gender-based violence is a general term.
Yes.
And it means, okay, don't hit a woman. But I think we should go beyond that and speak about the issues and help people to understand that, no, you don't do it. And yes, these things do happen. And you have to accept that these things happen. But that's not what you do.
No, I totally agree with that. So in your view, Timothy, other than gender-based violence, what are the most urgent real-world issues currently facing Grenadian youth that require, immediate leadership intervention? I mean, one I think of is like technical training, right, and skills and those kinds of things. I see that as a gap. I mean, I know there are things happening. I know there are things happening in Grenada on the island right now, but I see that as a critical issue because how do we move forward as a nation if our people, right, are lacking the skills and things like that. So that's one of the things that come to mind. When I think about the issues.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking along that line. I was just thinking about young people now. I mean, when you speak to people generally, not just engineering. I mean, if you have conversations with adults on the island now, particularly employers, it doesn't matter what field. It could be teaching, it could be engineering, it could be construction.
Yeah.
There's a general complaint you hear from everybody that the young people now, they don't seem to care. They want to come to work whenever they want. If you tell them something and they're not happy, they just walk away. They don't really care that they don't have another job when they walk away because with life now, they know they can get something from a friend, they can get something from somewhere. And that's actually what I was thinking about. I mean, the youths we have, well, young people, I kind of pause because I don't know, maybe when we were much younger, our parents and grandparents might have been saying the same thing, but the world is different now. It's always changing. And I think for some of these professions, it doesn't matter how much the world change. You still have to, I mean, okay, you have new professions now. For example, you have influencers who can stay in front of video and monetize that, right?
Yeah.
But I think for the young people now, I think they're not as resilient as before, and I think it probably might have to do with the exposure that they're getting.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter that we're now in the 21st century. Life is still challenging. It's challenging in different ways, but it's still challenging.
Yeah.
In fact, you probably hear more about depression now than you used to hear about depression before.
Yes.
And some people are confounded by it because they will say, okay, well, what is wrong with these young people? They have this, they have the phone, they have the car, they have this, and they're miserable. So I think I wasn't even thinking about the technical, because I think if you want to aspire and you want to do well, the opportunities will be there.
Yeah.
I mean, in my earlier years, we didn't have what is available now.
Yeah.
So I think, just like we were talking about gender-based violence and we need to intervene early on, I think young people now probably the way that what they're exposed to in society doesn't make them as resilient and it doesn't make them as tough. Yeah. And so they're less tolerant as well.
Yeah.
And these are areas you need to manage if you want to excel at whatever. And that's why I say if you speak to many business owners, I mean, there was a nanny, so I was speaking to someone who ran a nanny service here, and there was a constant complaint about the nannies that working for her. It's a general thing. So I think also, I think opportunities are there. Now, opportunities wouldn't be there like in the first world. But I think young people now, they're not as tough. And I think generally for life, it doesn't matter what country, you need to be tough. Life is tough. It has its own toughness.
Yeah.
And its own rigors. Yeah. And I think maybe, again, you come back to the home, you come back to the way the children are brought up. Maybe they're brought up too soft. I don't know. But to me, that is one of the, when I think, particularly having a business, I think that is one of the areas we need to, where I think focus needs to be paid to make young people tougher and more desirous of self-actualization, being the best that they can be.
Yes.
A lot of settle for mediocrity. That's what really stands out to me.
Yeah.
And I think the best way we can do it is to be that, so that they can see we're like that, and they, because they also follow us. Young people also follow us.
Yeah. No, I absolutely agree with you. I definitely think, the lack of, technical vocational pathways is one issue, but I absolutely agree with you in what you said in terms of, like, I definitely see a need for, like, emotional regulation, conflict resolution skills. Like, just even conflict resolution is something, like, I'm always, like, supporting people with, all right, so this is happening, and really putting it on them to resolve it before necessarily coming to me, right, as a supervisor. So I think, Timothy, you mentioned, influencers and all that stuff, and there's so much more digital tools available now. So there's the rise of, digital stressors. There's like, online bullying and all of those kinds of things.
Right.
I believe our youth need behavioral toolkits, and just like you're saying, it takes us back to that conversation earlier. It starts at home. Mm-hmm. So how do we help our kids as parents, and how does the school help? And you mentioned home and school. And even behaviorally, that's what we do. So we're doing the interventions in the school, but we're also sending resources and saying to the parents, all right, this is what we're doing. We need you to do it too, right? But they need help, Timothy. I 100% agree with you, to navigate the social complexities of life, to do it as independently as possible without resorting to aggression. But what also comes to mind, Timothy, is like we're seeing, it's just a different generation, first of all. So our generation, that's not what it is now. So that in and of itself is a whole other podcast, right?
Right.
And then ever since COVID, Timothy, so much has changed. And thinking of, our young kids just wasn't exposed to a lot of things. So we're seeing a lot of our students like really finding it difficult. We're seeing more challenging behaviors is what I'm trying to say. So I think you hit the nail on the head, that I absolutely agree with you.
Right.
It's really a need we need to address. So going back a bit, Timothy, to gender-based violence, right? How can we specifically, and you may have talked about this a little bit before, but I kind of want you to talk about it more specifically now. How can we specifically engage young men and young women, as you said, right, at the same time, to become champions for the safety and dignity of girls and women? So men appreciating the safety and dignity of girls and women appreciating their safety and dignity, but also appreciating the safety and dignity of men as well. Because as you said, oftentimes when we think of like abuse and violence, we tend to look at the men as the aggressor, but there are times it goes the opposite way, right? So in other words, I'd like to use, an engineering metaphor I've often heard you use when we chat, like in terms of reinforcing the structure of whatever that design is, that building, whatever it is, reinforcing the structure of masculinity to include protection and respect for girls and women. How can we engage, young men to shift their thoughts and their approach?
Yeah, well, for me, that is something that we have to have zero tolerance for. I mean, violence against women, something we should have zero tolerance for. We should let it be known to men that there's never any condition under which that's acceptable.
Yeah.
Right? There's never any condition under which that's acceptable. We need to women also need to understand that human beings are human beings. You have men and you have women. They have emotions, they have feelings, and they react. They're not robots. Even robots now are getting intelligent.
Yeah.
So we also need to understand that, our actions can create reactions. Now, it might not justify the reaction, but we need to also look at what can trigger that. And I have to be very careful when I'm speaking, because sometimes people blame women. As I keep saying, women are not to be blamed. But if what you're doing is creating a trigger, then you need to think about that. I mean, You have a right to walk the street without being interfered with. But if you're going to leave your home and walk along a street that's dimly lit or not lit at 1 o'clock in the morning, yes, that's your right as a citizen.
Yeah.
But is that being responsible? When you know, okay, there might be people roaming there, they have no right to interfere with you. But they could use the cover of darkness and the fact that you're alone to accost you. So while it's your right, it's not a responsible thing to do. And so, yeah, if someone accosts you, we will not say they have a right to. They don't have a right to. And they should be dealt with to the full extent of the law. Yeah. But we will also say, is it really responsible? Even though it's your right to walk the street whenever you want, is it a really responsible thing to do? And I think with the woman, that's the part I'm getting at. If you understand that there are these triggers that create certain sort of behaviors, is it the best thing to do to engage in behavior which can trigger these sorts of situations? It doesn't mean you don't have a right to do what you're doing, but understanding that these triggers, these certain things can create these triggers for violence. What can we do to help? What can you do to help alleviate or prevent those triggers from happening? And it doesn't mean that you don't have a right to do what you do, but you still have to look at the overall picture. Yeah. I think the conversation should go deeper than where it normally goes. Where it normally goes is you don't have a right to hit a woman. That's correct. And we should not support violence against women. And the way that's demonstrated locally is you have some rally or you have some walk and people walk with placards and they chant, or you have a motorcade and you have banners and no to violence against women. I mean, they do it and they still have violence against women. So I'm not saying it's not helping, but I mean, I think we need something deeper than that. I think we need to have some deep conversations with the men and the women about the violence and what triggers it and what can be done to prevent it being triggered. And I also think we need men needs a fundamental realignment of the way they think and the way they see women. Because the world now is different. We've come out of patriarchal societies where the man was in charge, but the man was in charge because the woman was denied the right to education. She was denied the right to independence. And now she has that, and she can assert her independence. She can say, look, I no longer am interested in this. I no longer want this. What has happened is the thinking of men, and that patriarchal thinking, I don't think has moved forward with the times that we're in. So the thinking is still way back then that I own this woman, and if she's not doing something that I find is helpful to me, that I can lash out. And we have to understand, we have to teach them that is not appropriate to lash out. But we also have to teach women that try to avoid situations which could make you vulnerable to these things. Avoiding situation might be avoiding someone. Once you see certain signs and you've heard stories that this person is a violent person, why are you going there? You need to. So sometimes we need, and I want to keep repeating that. I'm not blaming women. But we need to sometimes look and see how our actions can help, might be contributing to something, and see if we can modify our actions to help avoid it. Because ultimately, when the violence happens, it's already happened.
Right.
So I would say have deep conversations about the source, and not just saying we should not have violence against women. End of story. That's where I think we can go with it.
Yeah, again, very aligned, with how I would approach the situation, because it goes back again towards the function, behaviorally, and why is this thing happening, addressing the root, right? So I think another important thing, Timothy, is really, as you said, re-educating, retraining the brain, reframing our mindset and how we see things, but redefining strength, particularly the strength of a male, or the strength of a person, as, the ability to protect and respect, right?
Right.
If I'm strong, yes, I'm protecting and I'm respecting myself as a woman, myself as a man, someone else, that I'm interacting with or that I'm in a relationship with, that it's, the ability to protect and respect. But you also mentioned self-actualization, and I think that's critical. You mentioned things like resilience, and I think, surviving situations like that, or being able to identify and move away from situations like that, to me, it's a sign of resilience, because, okay, I can move away and I can still survive. I can move away and I can still, continue to live life. So I think that's important. But the more we get up, so self-actualization with Maslow's hierarchy, right? So we need those basic safety skills, right? And food and clothing and all those things. But at some point we have to be able to get, to the top of that triangle where it's at self-actualization, because then we're able to understand and just have a different outlook on life. because, our basic needs are being met. And so now we're higher up, on the ladder in terms of that. So I think I totally agree with you. It's a lot of the re-educating, but reframing how we look at it. But as you said, I 100% agree with you. It's sitting down and really having those conversations, addressing the root of the problem,
Right.
not superficially, right? But really addressing it authentically. And
Right.
that making sure like the home environment that is being taught at home too. Yeah.
Yes.
100%.
I always want to bring in the school as well, because the home, as we know, there's one person who says, all homes are dysfunctional.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you just have different degrees of dysfunctionality.
Different, exactly. Yeah.
So based on the home that one's been, all right, the home you grew up in might be one that the abuse is happening in.
Yeah.
So it's difficult for that person in that home to learn that you should not lash out at a woman. So that's where the school would come in, because if when you go to school, you also taught that, then okay, what I'm seeing at home is not correct. But these things, they're not normally, I don't think they're taught at school, and even at the early years. And it won't be, when it's taught, it's not being taught as gender-based violence. It should be taught about respect and the way you treat women. They're not, I don't normally hear about conversations about that at school. I hear, okay, what do we tell the young men to stop hitting the woman? Or what do we tell the old man to stop hitting the woman? Mm-hmm. Well, why don't we speak to the young man or the old man when he's in his formative years at school, so that becomes inculcated in him, so that he knows it's not correct. Yeah. The home is very important, but we have to understand also that the home sometimes is deficient. And so that's where the school will come in, because, and you know what's amazing with young children? Yeah. They tell you might be telling one thing and they'll say, Miss says this, or my teacher said that, because they look at what the teacher says as something very important. So why don't we use the teachers at that level to start to instill in them or inculcate in them that you should not hit women, you should not be violent against a woman for anything, and to help women, to young girls also understand, well, a man is not a rock, he's not a stone, he has emotions and he reacts. So we're not justifying it, but we should try to act in such a way that we don't create those triggers. Or sometimes the action might be to move away from someone who has those sort of tendencies. I think we should start earlier, and we should deal with it in that way. And I'm not saying don't have the intervention at the level of the adult male, right? But I think it will be more effective if we start teaching at those early years. Yeah. And then in those early years also, we need to reshape the mind, because we have women are much, much freer now. They are much more independent now. Right. They're much more liberated now. But the patriarchal thought remains. The patriarchal feelings, the patriarchal outlook remains. It's like racism. They have laws against racism, but there is still racism, because people grow up and they're exposed to environments and to homes where they're taught that certain people are better than others. Yeah. So we have to understand that. Yeah. And the way to deal with that is to teach in schools, because in the home, that's what they're exposed to. We expose them in the schools that, this race is not better than that race. You shouldn't treat that race less than you're treating your race, Yeah. I'm advocating for something similar with gender-based violence. Yeah. Yeah.
You made me think of when you talk about patriarchy. So I think then that brings in society has a responsibility too, because this whole thought of, the difference between men and women, it makes me think of pay, right? Where a man and a woman might have the same job, but the man, is paid more. So when you talk about that, it made me think of that, Timothy, because, society then really has a role in what message, right, are we sharing and sending with our citizens and our society, if we, or might have, you see more males in certain jobs than fewer females. And I think also too, it's really encouraging them, like, I don't know now, I guess now, Timothy, maybe there are more female engineers than before, but like we know historically, like some fields, so like really encouraging, you know what I mean? So the pay and who's in the workforce. And I think all of that too, as you mentioned, that made me think about the factors like that, how society really, plays a role as well.
Yes, I agree. Yeah. Because these entrenched ways of thinking, they're societal. Yeah. And what is important, what is interesting with these ways of thinking is people are not normally sat down and they're told, okay, the man is better than the woman, the man is in charge. If you speak to many guys, they won't tell you that we ever taught these things, but like literally. But it's what society supports and what society promotes, not necessarily explicitly, but implicitly.
Right.
So they learn that. So I agree with you on a societal level. You know, as I say, like with Christmas, we celebrate Christmas, and different societies celebrate different things. Now, you in your house, you live in your life normally, and then at the end of the year, you go out and you cut a piece of bush that has this kind of conical shape, and you put it inside your house, and you put a set of blinking lights on it. Nobody ever put you sit down and say, at this time of year, go and get a piece of bush, which you call a Christmas tree, cut it, put it inside your house, put these blinking lights on it. You see it being done, and you just adopt it.
Yes.
So,
that's a good analogy.
So that way of thinking, that patriarchal way of thinking, it's in there, it's in society. You adopt it, it's inculcated in you. And I think that's what we need to look at more than anything else. Yeah. And as I said, I mean, also for women needs to understand this patriarchal way of thinking. Certain behaviors or certain actions trigger certain behaviors. Now, it doesn't mean you can't act in that way, but you should also be aware that if these actions trigger these sort of behaviors, that maybe I should think twice when I have to do something like that, or after I'm doing something. It doesn't mean it's not your right. Yeah. But you know, because it's very interesting. If you speak to people in that sort of dilemma, the guy's dead, sure he's right, and he's justified. And the woman is dead, sure she's right, and she's justified. You know?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, you're right. It's having the conversations, but then even your point you made, Timothy, about even like 1 o'clock in the morning, like why walk by yourself, right? It's just the basic premise too of safety, right? And being responsible for your safety as well, taking some level of responsibility there. It makes me think of Michaela, where she goes to college. It's not necessarily in the safest neighborhood. But so what I said to her was like 4 years ago, you're staying in the square, right? You know, everybody knows that the square, this is where the campus is. But once you venture out, you move out of your safe zone, you know, where, you know, the campus has police officers, there's always patrolling and things like that. And then she worked late at night. I was like, yep, you're calling them to escort you back to your apartment, go in groups, like pay attention when you're walking, not on the phone, you know. So to your point, it's just a part of life, you know, violence or not, gender-based violence or not. It's just, how do we protect ourselves? How do we keep ourselves safe, right? And being responsible for our own beings.
Right.
Yeah.
There is. I think you summed it up quite correctly. Yeah. So, I mean, my point is, and which is what you're saying as well, is that just like with Michaela, she also has a responsibility. Yeah. That's the point I'm making. So the guy's lashing out, but you also have a responsibility. If you know the guy's lashed out at 10 women before, why are you going there? Right. Yeah. And if you know certain behaviors trigger that lashing out, then shouldn't you think twice? It doesn't mean it's not your right. Is Michaela's right to walk the streets wherever she outside the campus? Yeah. But it's not safe. So is it a responsible thing to do? Yeah. It's a responsible behavior to engage in if you know the guy's lashing out. It doesn't mean that he's right in doing what he's doing. Right. But I guess the way I'm looking at it is the way you sum it up. The example you give with Michaela is very, very good because it says the responsibilities on both sides. Yeah. And it goes back to, it also supports your point, Timothy, about the education, because as you said, like some people who engage in abuse, oftentimes they've been abused. And so sometimes women or men or whomever, it doesn't matter, engage in behaviors based on past experiences, right? And they have trauma and, you know, things like that. So also educating and supporting them and the counseling and the things like that to help them, you know, adapt a different mentality and approach to life, right? To kind of move out of that situation. So there's that part of it too, you know? Yeah, very good. Very good point. So what we're doing right now, I think, is just saying to a guy, don't hit the woman, don't hit the woman, don't hit the woman, don't hit the woman. But what are the triggers and how is he thinking? I think that to an extent is not really being addressed as well as it could be and as early as it could be. So I think the examples you give are very good as well. Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about, to close us off, responsibility, right, and legacy. So we've been talking about responsibility in terms of like, you know, keeping ourselves safe, things like that. But if you could give one piece of advice, Timothy, to budding leaders regarding, you know, the responsibility of leaders to themselves, to their colleagues, to their profession, to their communities, to their societies, what would that be? I'll make it very simple. I would just say, be the best that you can be at what you're doing. And one of the things that has surprised me is that as I said to you, that staff member told me sometime afterwards, that she used to boast to people about her boss. Yeah. I actually had a tenant who told me once, he used to boast to people about his landlord. Mm-hmm. And then there was an engineer friend of mine who said to me, we were chatting sometime, and, certain things you say, I find it makes sense, I'm thinking of rearranging some of the stuff I do. And so I would just say, just be the best that you can be. Human beings, and that's why influencers are big now. Human beings are followers.
Yes.
We copy.
Yes.
I'll give you an example of the Christmas tree. Nobody says, go and do that, but you're copying because you see everybody doing it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So you're leading even when you're not thinking that you're a leader. A leader, because you're not the head of an organization, doesn't mean you're not leading.
Yeah.
Parents lead.
Yeah.
Peers lead.
Yes.
So if you be the best that you can be at what you have to do,
yeah,
and there'll be people looking,
yeah,
and they'll be following,
yeah.
So that's my simple advice: just be the best that you can be. Yeah. I went to run half marathon maybe 7-8 years ago.
Yeah.
my focus was to finish. I thought I wouldn't be able to finish, but I did well, and so I was ready to say, look, I am not stopping to walk. Even if I have to slow down, I'm not stopping the jog. I just need to keep going. And then when I got in, I placed much harder than I thought I would. And then this couple came to me and they said, thank you very much for helping us. We were watching you and you just kept going. And we said, okay, let's just focus on this guy and just try to keep him in our sight, So that was So, and then I was trying to do the best that I can,
Yeah, yeah.
And there was a time years ago when I decided, okay, I want to lose some weight. So I used to go to the beach on evenings and I'd be jogging religiously, every day I go and I jog. And then one day, a lady who had some size came to me. She said, how many years I've been trying to lose weight and I see you jogging, that really motivates me. So, you get these responses. So what I get to realize is you do the best that you can, be the best that you can be, and you lead in others without even realizing it, because people look at you and they copy and they feel encouraged as well.
Yeah. So I led with the what question now. Now I'm coming back to you with the how question. How can people be the best that they can be? So I'm using you as an example, right? Because I know you're really good at what you do, in civil engineering. You have a really good reputation, like, great civil engineer and all that stuff, because you have that mentality of being the best, that I can be at what I do. What are some of the things you do specifically that led you to be the best that you can be at what you do, right?
Okay, so it's not complicated. I think you need to find something that you have a passion for or that you like.
Okay.
Now, this passion part, that's another part there are two sides to it. Yeah. There's one side that says, find what you like and you'll be passionate about it. Another one says, you can be, if you don't like something, you decide you want to do it and you want to be good at it, then you can become passionate with it. Mm-hmm. But I would just say, find what you like. So for me, I always had a bias to maths and science. I sort of pursue that. And the things I do, I actually enjoy. So it's different when you're doing something, you enjoy it, and otherwise, and you're just doing it because you have to do it. Because it means that for you to be better than the average, it means you have to spend more time than the average person spends. It's as simple as that. Yeah. But you would spend more time than the average person spends doing something because you like it, not because you necessarily making money from it. Yeah. And then of course you get rewards and so afterwards. But so I would say fundamentally find something that you like. And then once you find something that you like, then if you like it enough and you want to do it, try to do it well. And we have the bell curve. Distribution. And so there are a lot, the average, that's the bell. And those are really, really bad. You have not a lot of them. And those are really, really good. You have not a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so everybody won't be really, really good. But I would say if you find what you like, then you have a greater chance of excelling at it because you're doing it. When you're doing it, you're enjoying it.
Yeah.
There's one person said to me once that, there are two sets of people who counts the time they have left. One is a person who's in jail. So, I'm here for 5 years, then I have 4 years left, then I have 3 years left. And a person who's in a job they don't like. Okay, it's 12 o'clock now. Okay, it's 1 o'clock now. It's true.
Yeah.
I mean, both situations are not nice situations to be in, because you're in the job. You have to be sticking there. You have to be there for 8 hours during the day, and you really don't like it. And your focus is like, how much time I have left to get out of here.
Yeah.
If you're doing something that you like, you're not checking on how much time you have left. It's like, or this amount of time has gone already. I'm really loving this.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's what it was. I actually liked what I do. I actually enjoy. I get some satisfaction from it. So I would say that. So whether it's law, whether it's medicine, whatever it is, like in your case, you find something that you actually enjoy. I believe everybody has something that they like.
Yeah.
I was speaking to one lady. She cleans at a hotel, and she told me that's something she just loves. She just loves cleaning. Yeah. And because of that, I can tell you, she got recommended to do cleaning at high-end places for high-level individuals, simply because she was very good at it. So it doesn't matter what it is, find something that you like. And if you enjoy doing it, then you have the better opportunity of being your best at it, because it means now you will take more time. I can tell you, I had a conversation with this woman. She says, look, I no longer work in the hotel. I do clean on my own now. But, I communicate with them, because the way you have to make the bed, sometimes this is in the style. And that was really eye-opening for me, because I never thought cleaning had all of that,
Yeah, yeah.
It's like, this is the trend now for making up the bed, and this is the trend now for doing this, And for her, she's passionate about cleaning. She's really up to it. She say, okay, I will go on YouTube and see how to do this and how to do that. Yeah. And that's because she loved that. So I'm just saying, it doesn't matter what it is. Get something that you like doing, and then because you like doing it, you'll spend extra time doing it, and then you'll get very good at it. Because to be very good at anything, you have to spend extra time doing it.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Find what it is you like, something you're passionate about, spend extra time doing it. And then you're not even thinking of the extra time you spend doing it. Because if we go back to what you said earlier, a lot of your employees stay beyond, right, the work day, but there's the understanding, like, all right, we're going to be good at what we do. So some days, we're going to have to give it a little extra time. What comes to mind for me, Timothy? I think what I also pulled up from what you said, without you necessarily saying it directly, I really believe that's, a theme from that response is really never stop being a student of your craft, right? Because you're always learning. You're always like reading, researching, like, attending your association meetings, whatever. And the moment, Timothy, that you think you know everything is the moment you stop learning. The moment you stop growing, right? Because you're like, all right, I know it. What else is there to learn, right? So I think that was part of what you said without you directly saying that, but yeah.
Correct, because, in my profession, as well as just about all professions, we have AI now, for example, is that the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. True. The people who are arrogant about knowledge are actually those who don't know much, or who know hardly anything.
Yeah.
And those who really know, they actually that knowledge humbles them, because they realize how much more they don't know.
Yeah.
So the part about constant learning, that is true. Yeah. You have to be constantly learning. You have to be constantly researching. You have to be constantly, and there are new tools, there are new devices, there are new that come to make your work more efficient, to make your work more organized.
Yes.
And that helps. There's a lot more knowledge that over time, that as the world develops, as professions develop, that becomes available. So you have to be current. Again, if you love what you do, you want to be current.
You want to be, yes.
Yeah. So I would say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So to close us out today, Timothy, what is the blueprint, right, that you hope to leave behind for the future change makers of Grenada?
Okay. As you asked me that question, when I was at university, that's a lot of years ago, the professor told us, as civil engineering students, he said to us, look, you can't afford to make the mistake that doctors make, because the doctors bury their mistakes and your mistakes live on, If it's a bad structure, if it's an ugly structure, if it's not working, it's definitely to see.
Yeah.
and when I was working on a project in Barbados, I remember the project manager then said to me, we will, based on what we're working on, he says, look, you should always remember that whatever you built, it will remain there. And you don't want someone to be telling your children in the future after you pass, they don't know you were involved in that. They look at it and say, who is the twit that did that? So, because we do structures and we do, stuff that serves society, whether it's a road, whether it's a bridge, whether it's a building, they stand up there so when you talk about the blueprint, we certainly want to leave stuff behind that would stand the test of time and that would look good and that would serve their purpose and that would be functional. For me, it's something I never really thought of seriously. I think for me it's simple. I think I'll just go back to being the best. I would want people to think the blueprint I would want to leave is, you do the best you can. And if you do the best you can, the solutions you come up with, the structures you come up with, they will be the best.
Yeah.
And I think the message, I was speaking to someone recently, I didn't even remember that. And he says, 20 years ago we were working on a project and you told me, do it once instead of having to do it 5 and 6 and 7 times, and take whatever time you need to do it right and do it once and do it right. And he was speaking to me just last week and he was reminding me, I don't even remember I told him that.
Yeah.
So I think for me, if I can inspire people to be the best they can be, that's basically it. Nothing. I'm not even thinking of anything physical. I just think that if you can motivate people and encourage them to be the best they can be, because society and life is a continuation. You have those who come, we pass on, and then those, it's like a relay. You pass the baton on. That's what I would like to pass on.
Yeah.
And another thing I think, sometimes I think we in these parts, particularly like Grenada, small island like Grenada, I think we think less of ourselves than we should really supposed to. Because what I say to people is, we go to the same university, we go to first world universities.
Yeah.
We among those same students who are in the first world, we do the exams, we ace the exams, we do well the exams, we pass the exams. So why should you think that we're less than? We're not less than. It's just that sometimes we don't apply ourselves as we should.
Yeah.
So if I can motivate people to think like that I like the word self-actualization, which is basically the best that you can be, get to the best level you can get to. You'll find that many times you're probably the best, generally, or among the best. And that's what I would really, that's the blueprint I would leave behind, and being the best means finding out the information, doing whatever it takes. You would know, getting the best computers to work in the office, getting the best equipment, getting the whatever, that's how you become the best. Yeah. So it's all encompassing.
Yeah. I love that. It's what I stress too. And that's why I have this thing I came up with, like, better every single time, being the best you can be. It's really from B for Bob and an EST, Esther. Yeah. So anyways,
it's the same thing I'm saying. You just use different words.
Yeah. And so in addition to that, and I feel like I've hit that with you today, because you did say you're going to think more about, like, compassion and whatnot in your field and your role and in your business. But one thing for me, Timothy, that's important is, like, I want to be able to lead and leave that legacy where we focus on, like, compassionate care, like, seeing, especially because I work with people who have differences, so special education needs, whatever, like, they're a human being, they're a person, they just have differences, right? So being compassionate, like, the understanding them, listening to them, treating them with dignity and respect and honor, and seeing the behavior, whatever the behavior is, as an opportunity for teaching, for growth, for learning. Like, that's really what I'm really big on at the end of the day. But, being the best you can be, but just being this compassionate person who gives compassion to others. Because I always say sometimes, Timothy, somebody might come into work and maybe they slap the child. They shouldn't, right? That's not allowed, right? But perhaps they had something else going on, to your point from earlier, that then triggered that, right? So that's not allowed at all. Or maybe they might yell at someone, or whatever it is they might be. They might walk out of the office and slam the door, but always thinking. So I'll give you this analogy. Pat Fryman, right, a psychologist, he was given the speech on there's no such thing as a bad boy, like meaning there's always something going on, right? And so he said, he gave this analogy of, imagine driving, Timothy, like, especially like you're going to imagine, and like this person in front of you is not moving. Like you're honking the horn, you're beeping, you're overtaking, you're going around, like, what is wrong? And he said, like, this woman, she was at the red light and she wasn't moving. And everybody's honking the horn. And you're trying to get to work and you need, like, what are you doing? Someone came out of the car, went to her car, and her baby was in the back seat not breathing. So while everyone was upset, there was no compassion in the moment. Her child was struggling to live, right? So being able to see beyond the thing that is happening and say what else might be happening, just as you said earlier, getting to the root of the problem. But that's it for me. It's really, leaning on compassion and understanding there could be always something else going on, Timothy, that we cannot see, and just being compassionate and gracious enough just to take the time to understand,
Yeah, I think there's always something else because life happens.
Yeah.
I can relate to you two incidents. One person who worked for me, and one day, he broke down in the office crying. He just says, "Oh, Mr. Bubb, I don't know. I really try hard. I do everything. And I don't know why when you come, there's always something wrong. I recognize, yes, there's something wrong, but I really try." And the simple reason was the method that he was using wasn't the method that would make, because engineering is methodical and, you have structured way of doing things. So if you don't go through that structured way, you'll keep missing things. But in spite of that, somebody who would call me for advice anytime. Then I had a case, another person worked for me once, and that's why I say the compassion part, but I'll think about it. And then, she said to me, again, she's a good friend. She called me every time now. She works somewhere else now.
Yeah.
And, there's a day she came in and she says, last night, I didn't sleep properly because, I keep thinking maybe I made a mistake with this, and and Mr. Bubb wouldn't be very pleased. I actually thought I was actually surprised that I had in that sort of predicament.
Mm-hmm.
But we focus on what has to be done, and it has to be done to a certain standard.
Yeah.
And that compassion part. Like, until those people related those things to me, I didn't realize it was affecting them in that way. I don't know. The reason why I'm pausing is I don't know how much more. I don't know if the compassion could make a difference there. Because if it has to be done, it has to be done to this standard. It has to be done to this standard. I don't know. I mean, compassion is important, and I agree with you. I'm just looking at the part that I relate to. If I have someone working for me, we have to deliver. We have to deliver to the high standard. Mm-hmm. There's a certain process you have to go through. I'm not sure how much compassion will help in that case.
but at least you're willing to consider it. Yes.
Yeah.
That's Yeah. So just to a certain extent, because same with us with children. If a child is running out of the building, you might be not in a space, psychological space, but you can't just not do anything, right? So to your point, yes. But what are some of the things we can do? Like I might just have someone else step in, whatever the case might be. So it's just that, all right, we got to be accountable to this child. I understand you're dealing with something, I can step in. And for you in your field, it might be something different. Oftentimes if staff are dealing with challenging behaviors, which does a lot to your emotions and your personal being, I'll say, do you need me to step in? Most times they'll say no, because, but just offering that, in the moment, like, we still need to deal with this child. This behavior is happening. We got to keep you safe. We got to keep the child safe. But, how can I just show some compassion in the moment? Yeah. And for you, that might be something different,
Yeah.
Well, brother, thank you so much for this very in-depth conversation. It's a lot to think about. It's a lot to share. It's a lot to ponder, but it's a lot to learn from, right? And so there's a lot I'm walking away from this conversation with. So thank you so much for sharing your time.
Yeah, thank you too. You got me thinking about some things in a way, particularly compassion part that I never thought about before. That gave me some pause,
Yeah.
Because we're just driven by, getting it done and getting it done well. Actually, that's what sells us, So in the process, I never really stopped to think about the compassion part. But now I think I will consider that. Maybe the compassion part might be, look, you need to find something else to do.
Sometimes that is the case, bro. Sometimes that is it. Sometimes that is it. Yeah.
You're just not suited to this,
Yeah. Find what it is that works for you, that you like. That. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. That definitely could be a spin on it. Yeah.
Right. Thanks. So thank you too. I wish you all the best. I think what you're doing is very good as well, because it helps people think about something differently. And as you were talking about the blueprint and what advice you can leave, I think what you're doing there, what you're doing now with this podcast, it's helpful in that sort of way, because someone listening to this, they can learn, and it can create a reason for them to change, or for them to improve, or for them to look at something differently. Yeah. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, big bro. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you too. All the best.
All right. Have a lovely day.
Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Behaviorally Speaking, Leadership for Changemakers. And Timothy, thank you for sharing your wisdom, experience, and humanity in today's conversation. Today, Timothy reminded us that leadership is about doing things right the first time, helping people understand the purpose of their work, mentoring potential before it's visible, and being the example others follow, even when we don't realize we're leading. If you have a story about leadership and behavior from your community, we'd love to hear it. If this episode resonated, share it with someone who leads people, and check out our companion blog, Behaviorally Speaking, Insights for Changemakers, at esthercbubbabaservices.com/blog. For training, coaching, and behavior-based leadership support, visit esthercbubbabaservices.com. Until next time, lead with humanity and purpose. Practice with compassion and intention, and create meaningful, lasting change. This is Dr. Bubb. Stay inspired.